I would like. It's the oldest running.
To order. Before this public meeting begins, I would like to advise the public of the following. This is a meeting to host public meetings on matters requiring approval under the Planning Act. During the meeting, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers from committee and the public. Before we begin, members of the public are advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submission to the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin before the decision, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Further, if a person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submission to the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin before the decision, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Those wanting to be notified of Council's decision on any application should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralelgin.org, indicating which meeting they wish to be notified on and providing their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call Diane Wilson at 519-631-4860, extension 286, and provide the same information. This is a public hearing as required by the Planning Act to hear the applicant Lindsay Sibley and Don West Construction and every other person who desires to be heard in favor of or against the application for a minor variance from the zoning bylaw respecting lot 45, 187 Walter Street. Does any member of the committee have a disclosure of interest concerning this application? I'm seeing none. If the applicant or agent is listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you have called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. We will acknowledge your raised hand and you can unmute to explain the application. Do we have the applicant? Dan Highland, are you speaking on behalf of this application?
Hi there. Yes, I'm here on behalf of Lindsay with Don West Construction for the application.
Okay, if you could go ahead and explain the reason for the application.
Sure. Yeah. So the applicant is requesting a minor variance for a few items on the property related to the zoning. So a couple things here. The depth of the lot is less than the R1 zoning. Also max the coverage. And a few of the items here kind of relate together as it's a shorter lot than what the zoning typically allows for. So there's a floor area ratio and the allowable height of the building, which relates to the backyard as well. So in general, the zoning here hasn't been updated in several decades, which most of what's being asked here is not uncommon in today's typical zoning that we would see. So that's kind of where this is the standpoint, I guess, where this is coming from. But yeah, if there's any questions, happy to provide answers where I can.
Okay, thank you for that. What method of notice and when was notice given to the public of the hearing?
Madam Chair, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 60 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on May the 13th, 2022. Notice was physically posted to the property by municipal staff as well as the municipal website, and notice was displayed in the weekly CBuzz advertisements. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, do you have any comments with regards to this application?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing further to the report.
Thank you. Are there any comments from municipal staff with regards to the application? I'm seeing none. Have you received any written submissions on the application?
Madam Chair, correspondence has been received from William and Kaylee Smolders, 185 Walter Street, outlining concerns. As well, correspondence has been received from Sandra Crinklaw Jones, 189 Walter Street, seeking an extension to the hearing as she has not had sufficient time to prepare. She has also submitted correspondence outlining her concerns. The above noted correspondence has been circulated to the committee members as well as planning and municipal staff. The summary of the Crinklaw Jones and Smolder correspondence is as follows. Minor variances 1 and 2 for the lot depth and area are acceptable. Developing the lot is preferable to leaving it in vacant, unkempt state with an abandoned shed. To minimize impacts on the surrounding houses, minor variance 3 for the size of the accessory building should not be approved. Minor variance 4 for the north side should not be approved due to its significant impacts on 99 Walter Street. This side yard should be at least 10 feet. Minor variance 5 for the south yard. Side yard is acceptable since it has no impacts on 185 Walter Street. Minor variance 6 for the floor area ratio should not be approved since it is not minor and the new house will be out of character for this older style Port Stanley neighborhood. Ms. Crinklaw Jones also raises concerns with infiltration, grading, and flooding.
Thank you. As a committee, would you like to discuss the extension or would you prefer to go ahead and see what discussion comes out of it and make a decision on that before we make a decision on the application?
I'm just curious as to whether the two that have sent in written complaints, if they're here tonight to speak, that might, I don't know. That's that way we can hear. They've certainly, as Diane has explained, made a very clear outline of what their concerns are.
Yes. Mr. Perrin, do you?
Mr. Smolders is in the gallery, and then there is another individual with their hand up, but it's just their email. I don't know who they are.
They are. Should we continue? And then before we make a decision, we can, if anybody feels there is a reason to extend. Deputy Mayor Marks?
Well, there has been a request to defer this. There wasn't much time for the one neighbor to be prepared or react to it. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask for an extension.
I would assume instead of an extension, you just defer it to the next planning application.
If that's a
Minor variance
I have
committee
no
meeting.
problem with that.
Would we need a motion on that? Someone would have to bring a motion forward on it.
I'd so move.
Do we have a second?
Willing to second.
Second. Discussion?
Just a comment, should we not hear the rest of the public commentary before we proceed? I'd just like to know their thoughts rather than cutting off that conversation.
And anybody else have any other thoughts on it before we vote? Councillor
I
Kravitz?
would also like to hear if the people do have any thoughts on why that deferral is required.
Yep.
Because we are cutting into the planning of other people as well. So I think it'd be fair to hear them first before we decide on deferring this item.
And Councillor Fair?
I'm just curious, I'm wondering if I like the idea of hearing everyone, and I'm just wondering if we are able to discuss it, or is the question just defer and discuss at a later date?
Well, I think we have a motion on the floor currently that we will have to vote on. So depending on how that motion goes, I would say determines the discussion this evening. All right.
Through you, Madam Chair, procedurally at this point in time, you have not called the vote.
Okay.
A motion to defer typically is not subject to debate or comment. However, if the mover and seconder agree to remove, you would not have to vote on it. It's your decision as the chair.
Okay. Can we?
I'm willing to remove so that we give people a chance to hear, and then we can decide whether we make the motion again after.
Okay, and you're in agreement with that? Okay, so we will continue on. Okay, do any members of the committee have any questions on the application? Deputy Mayor Marks?
I think there's been a request from the two neighbors. They made some, agreed with some of the variances. Is there any, I guess I'd be asking this of the applicant, is there any compromise there? One of the ones is the fact that the building will be so close to 4 foot. Is there any compromise that maybe this would solve some of this?
Mr. Highland, did you hear the question from Deputy Mayor Marks?
I did, thank you. Yeah, I could talk to Don West to see if there's any, I'm not able to speak to that if there's any compromise there. I could talk to them. I would note that, yeah, 4 foot is typical between lot line to building, but yeah, I can absolutely bring that concern forward to her.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I think Councillor Fair and then Councillor Rowe.
My concerns with this, I don't know if it should be addressed to Mr. Highland or Mr. McClure. There are 6 minor variances. One of the variances changes the house size by 22% bigger than what bylaws allow. Various areas that it's closer to the property line. I'm just wondering, 6 minor variations, when does the accumulation of minor variances become a major variance? And given the lot size, why can't they just build a house that fits with the criteria?
Mr. McClure, would you like to take that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councillor Fair. I think it's important to note that 2 of the variances that have been requested are, I guess, to address the already existing undersized lot area and lot depth. So 2 of the 6 is recognizing the existing conditions of the parcel as it is today. With respect to the other variances, as Mr. Craig's report indicated, the one being 9.8% coverage is to address, I guess, accessory buildings and structures, which really in this instance deals with the deck and stairs that are proposed with this current configuration or design. The 4 foot side yard depth and 6.34 feet for the side yard as well. That's consistent with other zoning that we've had in the past in the area. So typically we would have, we've approved 1 meter side yard setbacks for development. So what's being proposed here is actually 1.2 roughly meters. So it is consistent with zoning and minor variances that have been approved in the past. Same thing with the rear yard setback. And in this instance, through Mr. Craig's report, he indicated that the building and the setback to the rear property line would be consistent or at least similar to the buildings to the north and the south of the existing parcel. And the floor area ratio, because it's a floor area ratio to the size of the property itself, the fact that the parcel is already, I guess, undersized adds to why that number is inflated as well. From his, I guess, review of the proposal, it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and similar types of sizes of dwellings. So from his perspective, it was minor in nature, or that even though there are several minor variances, they each were minor in nature and warranted going through this process as opposed to a zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Fair, is that? Okay. Councillor Rowe, you had a question or a comment?
It was more of a comment, I guess, because in Ms. Crinklaw's letter, she just indicated that she has talked to the Smolders and they are willing to find some sort of compromises, I guess. So I would just encourage them to talk to the developer and come up with something that actually makes sense. But their two main concerns looked like, I'm sure there's others, but one was the lot line and one was the grading and storm management. So I think they just need reassurances on those items, at least, that they aren't going to negatively impact the existing property. So if Mr. Smolders or the others are still on line, they can comment to that if they wish.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Deputy Mayor Marks?
I guess that would maybe some reason why we should defer this for a couple of weeks. Hopefully they can make some improvements perhaps. And then they would come back and take a look, see where we're at in 2 weeks. Next meeting, wherever it is.
Our next step is to take questions from the public. So I think we'll follow through with that and then we can take it from there. So next we will take questions from the public with regards to the application. And if you are listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. If you have called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be taken in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. And Mr. Smolders, I guess. Mr. Smolders, if you would like to, you can go ahead, please.
Yes, can
With
everybody
your
hear me?
questions or, yep, we can hear you.
Okay,
Go
wonderful.
ahead.
Very good. So obviously you guys have read our letter and thank you for doing that. And I just want to bring up a couple things. So first of all, as far as notice goes, I received a letter in the mail about this meeting on Thursday afternoon. So that's only about 2 business days to prepare. I know the sign was put up on Monday or Tuesday, but that seems even tight because that's only 4 or 5 business days. So one of my questions is, and you can answer it in a little bit, what's the standard as far as notification period? Because I understand you've notified us, but with very little time. And then as far as the main issues go, again, we're very much willing to work with the builder. I'm a little bit disappointed that the builder isn't here to discuss this. But I mean, we sold the lot. We knew that someone would build on it. So we're not against building on the lot. It just seems to me, and I understand the first 2 applications for minor variance are minor, but the distance from the adjacent houses. So we're at 185 Walter Street, and you know, being closer on that side, it doesn't bother us that much because our main yard is the south facing that faces Lake Erie. However, the north, that's really tight. And then the floor ratio. So I know that Dan mentioned that the lot is small, right? Normally they're 40 by 80, or this is 40 by 80. But he mentioned a lot of them are, a standard lot is 100 feet in depth. So even if you look at that, that's a 25% increase in land area. But what they're proposing is going from that 0.40 ratio to 72% higher. That is significant, and that is not minor. So, and my last point to make is, you know, I mentioned, Dan said that the zoning bylaw hasn't been updated for a long time. In fact, I don't think it's even available online. We have to request for it. But what's one of the points of the zoning bylaw? 6 items can be altered in order to build. Sorry, my daughter wants to enter the conversation here too. Yeah, those were my main points.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smolders.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else from the public?
You have answers.
Pardon? Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Mrs. Wilson, can you speak to the
Notice
notification? Yes, please.
Procedurally, as per the Planning Act, notice has to be given for 10 days. Notice was sent out on May 13th. So May 24th is 11 days. It does not take into account business versus calendar days. It states 10 days notice.
Is Mr. Smolders still on the line?
He's still there.
He's still there? Okay. Did you hear that explanation, Mr. Smolders? Mr. Smulders, did you hear the explanation on the method of
Yeah, I just
notification?
got a link to speak. So, I get that, but reasonably, so getting, notice, I know what you're saying is the physical days, but the Thursday before a long weekend isn't great. And as well, yeah, that's the main thing. I was a little bit like, we had Janet Smulders look at this, and the plans weren't available till Thursday night, even though the sign was posted on Monday and we got the letter then. That was another issue. Like, how are we supposed to assess what's going on with incomplete information?
Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson.
Madam Chair, through to the rest of the committee, as council is fully aware, the direction of council is to post the agenda the Thursday night prior to your meeting. That is what staff did, and attached to that agenda, your planning applications or the sketches that were provided in Mr. Craig's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Councillor Kravitz, go ahead.
And also, as Ms. Wilson indicated, notice was sent out on May the 13th. So there was the 10 days prior notice given for this, Mr. Smulders. So unfortunately, I don't know the method of how receiving the information, but it was sent out to adjacent properties on the 13th of May.
Yeah, and unfortunately, once it's sent out, we have no control of it making it to its destination, I guess is the problem there. So, okay.
And also to
Go ahead.
that point, there's a sign physically posted on the lot, and I believe Mr. Smulders identified that sign was on the lot on last Monday.
Yes, that's right, which is in plenty of time for consideration. Mayor Martin?
I'm assuming too, once they see the sign on the lot, they have the right to phone in and get the information that as to what the variances
To
are, that they
inquire.
don't have to wait till the Thursday night's agenda. I'm assuming.
Mr. Shipway?
Through Madam Chair, I have no comments, just the planning department's always available to answer questions on any matter, so.
Okay.
Nope.
Good, thank you. Mr. Perrin, do we have anybody else wanting to speak? Okay.
Just 1 second.
Just letting another person into the meeting to speak.
So, Madam Chair, this individual has an older version of Zoom, so I have to promote her as a panelist, which doesn't allow me to remove them or remove their permission to talk. So we can let them in as a panelist, just that they don't have the ability to just talk freely back and forth.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, yes, okay. And we don't know who it is at the moment.
See them.
Hello, can you identify yourself, please? Oh, you're muted.
Now he's frozen.
Frozen now.
Would it be helpful to tell them how to phone in?
I'm not sure if, oh, there you are. Hello, you're still muted. You're still muted. You need to unmute yourself. There should be a little microphone showing.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi.
Can you please
Sorry.
identify yourself for the committee?
Yes, my name is Janice Peckinger, and I live directly behind this lot at 188 Frederick Street.
Okay.
We just received this notice in the mail last week, and I immediately called the municipality and requested a copy of the application package. I sent an email to Kevin McClure. I have never heard anything back. I was not available on Thursday night because that was a long weekend, which is not very nice to post something that you need to access on a long weekend if you're not available. We have a lot of interest as to what's going on in the property directly behind us. And I have no information other than this notice to tell me what is going on, what's going to be built. And I think don't you guys have quality standards to provide people when they call in or email you to give me an answer?
Well, as was stated previously, notification is sent out 10 days prior. Unfortunately, we have no control once the notice has been sent out in how long it takes to get to people's mailboxes. Unfortunately, we have no control over that. But notice was still posted on the property.
Right.
In plenty of time. So you were still able to contact based on that. No, I'm sorry, you've muted again.
Yeah, somebody muted me, not me.
Okay.
Either way, I have called and asked for a copy of the application package so that I can make a qualified assessment as to what is being built behind me. And no one called me back. No one sent me an email reply. I find that unacceptable in this regard. And I would really like to have the information so that I can make an assessment as to how this is going to work out for me.
Okay, one moment, and I'm just going to, I just have an answer for you here, one moment. And I think you may be muted again. Unfortunately, we'll have to mute you in between.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson.
Sharon, through the rest of council and Mrs. Peckinger, we did speak on the phone, Mrs. Peckinger. We had a conversation and I did indicate to you that the planning report would be posted on the agenda Thursday evening. You did not provide me with an email address to send you that information. And you did leave me a message and I did call you back, Mrs. Peckinger. If you would like to check your messages, I can absolutely verify that I called you back.
Yes, you did. But we had just got off the phone and you said you couldn't provide me with any further information and that I should contact the planner, who is, I believe, Kevin McClure. So I did that through your website on an email, which is, you know, and I used to work for the government. So quality standards are that you reply within 48 hours or have some kind of acknowledgement. I was out of town after that conversation, which is why I wanted it through the email. And I never heard anything back from Mr. McClure. I find that unacceptable. And you didn't provide me with any information. I appreciate that you say that you talked to me, but basically it was, all I know is what's on that notice. That's what you said.
Okay, I have Mr. McClure here and he was wanting to speak. We will hear from Mr. McClure, and then you have right now at your disposal our planning department, that if you have questions right now you would like to ask, you would be able to have them answered right now. So
well, I would like the document as requested.
Okay, well, we'll hear from Mr. McClure and then I will come back to you, okay?
Thank you.
Mr. McClure, go ahead, please.
Yep, thank you. No, and I've just checked my email address. I never received any from this individual requesting any sort of information on this. I'm not too sure if it went to maybe Mr. Craig, given that it was his application and report, but I had never received any email about this property, other than the correspondence that's been received through, I guess, the concerns raised by Mr. Smolders in that as well.
Sorry, I see that it has my.
One moment, just the procedures of the committee. Or you can't just speak out. So I will give you an opportunity to speak, okay? Thank you, Mr. McClure. Now I understand your concerns with regards to the notification. And unfortunately, that time has passed and we can't go back and do anything about that. But as I stated, you have an opportunity to ask questions now with regards to this application and make your concerns heard right here, right now, if you would like to go ahead with that.
I just in replying to Mr. McClure, the email on the form that you have online is janice.peckinger@gmail.com. I'm not sure why my personal email has popped up here. I have requested that information so that because as my learning abilities require me to be able to read and process something before I can ask you a question that would be meaningful. I was not provided with any document and that I had requested through Ms. Wilson as well as Mr. McClure now, and I'm still unavailable to get it. So if possible, I'd appreciate that you do delay this Zoom meeting for another couple of weeks so that you can send me that document that I requested and I can go over it and make some assumptions on that.
Okay, is that your only comments then?
I have no document to be able to give you any knowledge.
Okay, I just need to be able to move on. So I just don't want to cut you off if you had anything more to say.
So are you going to?
We have a procedure I have to follow here, and I can't move on until I'm sure that you have said all that you need to say right now.
Okay, but can you send me the document and defer this meeting so that I can make an informed?
That is up to the committee, not myself. And
Okay.
procedurally, we will make that decision going forward now.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. Mr. Perrin, do we have any other members of the public or anybody else wanting to speak? Sandra, if you unmute yourself, please, and if you can please identify yourself, your full name and address.
I'm Sandra Crinklaw Jones. I live at 189 Walter Street.
Sorry,
Did we lose her?
just a second.
Sandra, we've got you back now. If you can unmute yourself again, please, and go ahead.
Okay, did you hear anything I said?
We did get your name and your address, so you don't.
Okay. I won't repeat that. Yes, I'm not going to repeat a lot of things that have been listed. Everything is written down. My one major concern is the 4 feet variance between the property. To the best of my knowledge that I can see, the lot line is a little further on my property than I realized. I would like some time to get my own personal survey done so that I know exactly where the lot line is, so we know what we're dealing with. And according to the zoning bylaws that I have seen, the bylaws state that it's 10 feet on one side and 4 on the other. I do understand this is an undersized lot. I believe the house can be substantially minimized in size. It's a very large house for a small lot. And I would be more than willing to agree to the lot size that's listed in the zoning bylaw, which is 4 feet plus 2, which would be 6 feet from my lot line.
Thank you. Did you have anything further?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anybody else? So to the committee, any further discussion with regards to a delay?
I would say from the sounds of the various people that probably delaying to our next meeting. I would assume, and I can check with Mr. Shipway, whether we have to wait to the next planning application meeting or if we can just do it at our next meeting.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we would defer to the next planning meeting.
So that would be 4 weeks away, 5 weeks.
Okay.
I'd be in favor of that.
In favor, Councillor Krebitz?
I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor, before we discuss that, the applicant online, that is, who was on the applicant online? Dan. If this is delayed for 1 month, you did follow the proper procedure in submitting your application. Everything was done the proper way as far as people not receiving information or receiving information or not. That's not the purpose of this committee. The purpose of this committee is to assess the application as submitted and make the decision on submitted information. Delaying by 1 month, does that jeopardize anything with the building process on the applicant? Dan, do you have a comment on that?
Dan, go ahead. You just need to unmute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so I'm with Dillon Consulting, and we're the consultant for Don West, who's the applicant. I guess I can't comment to how it will impact their schedule. I know that in general, delays are not wanted, but I think I understand that the committee has to make the decision that is best here. So unfortunately, I can't comment on how it will impact the developer's schedule.
Thank you. So, sorry, Mr. Shipway, does that previous motion still,
We have to, with
Through you, Madam Chair, there's no motions
no motion now?
as the mover and seconder withdrew.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Marks.
I would move that we delay this.
So the next planning meeting? And is anybody willing to second that? Mayor Martin? Okay. Further discussion before we go to vote?
Is the motion read? Would you like the motion read?
Yes, please.
Draft motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Mayor Martin, that the Committee of Adjustment agrees to defer Committee of Adjustment Application 722, Lindsay Sibley, Lot 45, 187 Walter Street, until the next planning meeting dated June the 27th of 2022.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mayor Martin?
the only comment I would make is I know sometimes when we've deferred them, we have considered them at the next meeting of council, even though it's not a planning meeting. If that would be helpful, that's all I'm wondering. It would mean Mr. McClure or someone would have to be in attendance.
It's at the discretion of council.
Of council. Would you prefer then the next meeting? We're not holding it up for. I think personally, I'd prefer it moved ahead sooner than later.
Well,
That's,
the 2 weeks to the next meeting or whatever does give them adequate time to get the planner that they were looking for and the woman to be able to get a copy and read the document so she knows what she wants to ask.
I think that's plenty of time as well.
So if we could change the motion then to the next regular meeting of council?
So that's up to,
Member Deputy Mayor Marks, are you in agreement with that?
All about compromise. I'm in agreement.
Mayor Martin, I will change that to the 13th.
thank you. Going once, going twice before we vote. Mrs. Wilson.
I believe everyone's in attendance.
Oh, okay, that's right. We don't have, okay. All those in favor? And that's carried. So this will be deferred till our next regular meeting. Mrs. Wilson, just procedurally with those who are requesting the documentation, is it for them now to get in touch with you in order for that information to be sent to them, or just from being on the meeting tonight, that will be sent out? Go ahead.
I guess procedurally, I would like Mrs. Peckinger, if she wants me to mail it to her, if she could provide an email address. If she would like it mailed to her, I can do that as well. If she'd like to pick it up, what's her preference, and I would accommodate that.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Perrin first. Oh,
And if I may, Madam Chair, the staff report is on council's agenda, which is on the website,
available
which is available to anyone this evening, or was available on Thursday,
Thursday, yes.
the application and the staff report. And that's what would be forwarded.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Shipway, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, or through you, Madam Chair, my apologies. We deal with this offline, so we're not putting someone's personal information out.
Right, yes, yeah, no, I wouldn't take that.
We can tackle the remainder of this offline, but as Mr. Perrin and Ms. Wilson indicated, all the information is posted online and available at this point in time, but we'll follow up specifically with the one that was directly requested.
Okay. So, and just to state that again, all the information is on the website containing, so everything that would be sent to you, you would be able to access right now on our website. But Mrs. Peckinsale, you had directly requested the documentation. So that will, Mrs. Wilson will get that to you. It's just whether it's through an email if you wanted to pick it up or if you would like it mailed out. We won't do that right now in case you would like it emailed, and we won't because we don't want your personal information on this public forum. So, okay, but it has been deferred till our next regular meeting for next month.
And what date would that be?
13th.
Sorry, was that the 3rd?
13th.
13th? June 13th is our next meeting.
I put my email on this before you said it's public, so I don't know if it looks like it's going to Mr. Chair.
Meeting's done.
It's, okay, we'll deal with that to ensure that that gets to you, okay? So this
Yeah, thank
meeting, okay, this application will be deferred to that next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shipway?
You, Madam, sorry, I'll let you call this meeting over. Sorry, my apologies.
Oh, okay. Do I need to? Okay, thank you. Those wanting to be notified of the committee's decision on any application should.
Motion to defer.
Pardon?
Motion to defer the meeting.
Sorry,
Oh,
Madam Chair. I
yes,
just meant that
that's right, yes.
In that meeting, we can move on to the.
Can move on to the next one.
Application.
So I don't need to. Sorry, that's what I was asking. So, okay, I can go straight into the next one. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Mr. Shipway.
Madam Chair, I just want to point out that we have 3 meetings left here, and we have our municipal auditor scheduled for 7 o'clock at our regular council. So just want to be cognizant of time that I think it's appropriate to make the auditor wait for some amount of time, but if we're getting 20 minutes, half an hour, if it's the will of the committees, we may have to recess and jump in to see the auditor, but I just wanted to point that out so everyone was aware of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. This is a public hearing as required by the Planning Act to hear the applicant, Jason and Belinda Litster, and every other person who desires to be heard in favor of or against the application for a minor variance from the zoning bylaw respecting 6311 Sunset Road. Does any member of the committee have a disclosure of interest concerning this application? And I'm seeing none. If the applicant or agent is listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you have called into the meeting using that telephone, please dial *9. We will acknowledge your raised hand and you can unmute to explain the application. Mrs. Wilson?
Madam Chair, at this time, staff needs to indicate that we have received email correspondence from the applicant, Jason Lidster, stating the following. He would like to defer the Committee of Adjustment meeting to a future date. He is currently reviewing some issues with the well and proposed location of the detached garage.
Thank you.
The request has come from the applicant.
Okay. So to the committee,
I'm willing.
to. Now, because the applicant has requested, do we need a motion? We do. Okay, so if I could get
I'm with that motion.
Councillor Kravitz and seconded Councillor Rowe.
Motion reads, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
By Councillor Kravitz, second by Councillor Rowe, whereas a request by the applicant Jason Lister, 6311 Sunset Road, has been received seeking deferral of public meeting for the Committee of Adjustment number 622, as he is currently reviewing some issues with the well and proposed location of the detached garage. Now therefore be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment members agree, as requested by the applicant, to defer the public meeting to a future date.
Thank you. Gosh, it's been so long since we've done this. I find it very difficult to call for a vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a public meeting as required by subsection 3412 of the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment respecting 43315 Roberts Line. The purpose of the amendment is to satisfy a condition required by the municipality and the County of Elgin Land Division Committee that would prohibit the retained lands, 51.6 hectares, from constructing a new residential dwelling. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Seeing none, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Madam Mayor, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 120 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on April the 29th, 2022. Notice was physically posted to the property by municipal staff as well as the municipal website, and notice was displayed in the weekly e-buzz advertisements.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, would you, as our planner, go ahead and present this to us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just share my screen. So as can be seen on the screen, this is a public meeting to present a draft zoning bylaw amendment for 43315 Roberts Line. As can be seen on the screen, the location of the property, the subject lands is south of Roberts Line and west of Fairview Road. And as has been provided, it's a rezoning as a condition of two separate surplus farm severance applications that were submitted to the Elgin County Land Division Committee. And that would require that the remaining or retained lands, there's a prohibition on those lands to, I guess, prohibit a dwelling. As can be seen on the screen now, this is the, I guess, the two severances that were separate severance applications that were submitted, and the property itself has two dwellings currently on it that they're looking to sever off through those means. This brings us to the amendment itself. Part one of the amendment introduces a revised index map to the Township Yarmouth bylaw. Map part 82 is not currently and this area is currently not within the bylaw. So a new map part has to be introduced as part of this process. Part two of the amendment then introduces Schedule B to this amendment that changes the schedule from map part 51A. And then Schedule C introduces again that map part 82 that was introduced through this process. And again, the purpose of that is to designate the lands. So part 4 of the amendment designates the lands outlined in heavy solid lines on the Schedule B and C as OS 1-224. So this is the new index map that gives an overlay of all the different sections. And the map part 82 is shown kind of in my cursor area here, why a new map part was needing to be introduced. This is map part 51, and as per that those previous parts, you can see that a portion of the property is on map part 51, and that's the areas that's designated OS 1-224 through this amendment. And then map part 82 that was introduced. The remainder of the farmlands, as can be seen here, is that OS 1-224. And then these are the two parcels that will be spoken to shortly, but the one hatched being OS 1-225 and OS 1-226 being the cross-hatched area. So part 5 of the amendment introduces a new subsection to the OS 1 section of the bylaw, being 8.2.2.224, defines the area shown on zoning map part 51A and part 80 as OS 1-224, provides that the only permitted uses on the property are farm use and accessory uses, and the only permitted buildings and structures are farm buildings and structures, but no dwelling shall be permitted. And then accessory buildings and structures are also allowed. And then there's an exception added to this section of the bylaw to deal with the permitted uses and permitted buildings and structures. Part 6 of the amendment then goes forward to designate the area shown hatched on Schedule C as OS 1-225. And with Part 7 and introducing a new subsection being 8.2.2.225, defines the area on zoning map Part 82 as OS 1-225, and then provides that the only permitted use being a rural residential use, home occupations and accessory uses, and then the permitted buildings and structures being a single detached dwelling and accessory buildings and structures. Similarly, exceptions to the general provisions of the OS1 zone are provided for to again deal with the permitted uses and buildings and structures in that zone. And then Part 8 of the amendment designates those lands shown on Schedule C that are crosshatched as OS 1-226, with Part 9 introducing another subsection to the OS1 zone being 8.2.2.226. Defines the area shown on zoning map Part 82 as OS 1-226, and again provides for only permitted uses being a rural residential use, home occupation, and accessory uses. Provides that the permitted buildings and structures are a single detached dwelling, accessory buildings and structures, and then again provides exceptions to the general provisions of the OS1 zone to address the permitted uses and buildings and structures in that zone. And then in anticipation of the eventual consolidation of bylaw 1998, schedule, including this amendment, Schedule D and E are added to this amendment, meaning zoning maps 51 and zoning map 82. And that's to include all the changes that have been made to those zoning maps by all amendments to bylaw 1998 to date, including through this amendment. And then that's again here showing the area on map part 51, that OS 1-224. And then in map part 82, again, showing the OS 1-224, -225, and -226. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McClure. Have you received any written submissions on this proposal?
Madam Mayor, no correspondence has been received.
You. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. If you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be taken in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. Is there anyone requesting to participate?
Get his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Matt?
Mayor Martin, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Mayor Martin and Council, my name is Matt Campbell, Senior Planner with Zelenka Priamo, the agent on behalf of the applicant, Maple View Farms. We're happy to have this application before Council this evening. This is a fairly straightforward application with some quirks in it. So this is a relatively straightforward surplus farm severance. The severance will be going before Land Division Committee, I believe in June 22nd. In anticipation of that, we're looking to get the zoning squared up as well. As Mr. McClure identified, there's some special provisions that are being requested here. Again, this is a situation where we have two existing dwellings. The applicant and landowner, Maple View Farms, they have no interest in owning those dwellings anymore. They're currently rented out to tenants, and they would like to sell those off as freehold, as they're not material, nor do they form any part of their agricultural operations. There's, just for Council's information, there's some quirky things going on with the site in that the servicing for the two dwellings was by a single water well, and there was one septic bed that was denoted on the site. So the applicant is committed to undertaking a complete overhaul of servicing and bringing these up to code, which we're quite happy to see. The lots are, they're not the smallest rural residential lots that we've seen, and that's as a result of the septic report that was prepared by the septic engineer. So we've gotten these lots as small as we can to comply with the recommendations of the septic engineer. I did have a quick question for Mr. McClure, and perhaps I had missed it in his presentation. Just a question on the bylaw. We had requested a special provision for parcel A, that's the westerly parcel, for a minimum front yard setback of 12 meters. Mr. McClure, could you just confirm that that was in the bylaw? Maybe I just glossed over that and missed it.
I guess if I no. So it was my understanding, and that was brought forward through Steve Craig's report when he was dealing with the severance, that essentially that was to address the existing location of buildings and structures, given that the current dwelling is I guess currently in that location. The bylaw would not impact I guess that the existing location, and that further any additions or further development on the site would need to comply with the zoning on the property.
Okay, thanks very much for the explanation there. I mean, we don't necessarily have an issue with the proposed bylaw, as there's no proposed changes to the building at this time. And if there was any sort of modification to the building, I'm sure that a variance or any other sort of Planning Act application could be brought forward if that was required. Okay, sorry, that was my only question. And again, I think everything is okay in that regard. Happy to answer any questions that council or the public, if there is anyone participating in this meeting, that may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kravitz, you wish to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Campbell. Just a question I have, as far as lot creation, the Ontario Federation of Agriculture opposes lot creation in agricultural area. In 2.3.4.1 section C, a resident surplus of farming operation as a result of farm consolidation provides that in number 2, it says the planning authority ensures that new residential dwellings are prohibited on any remnant parcel. So once the first severance is done, it should prohibit the second severance to occur. I think it's kind of a crock, I guess I can use that word. That if there was 6 houses on this property or 12 houses on this property, would you be coming forward requesting 6 to 12 severances at this point? I don't think that's the intent of the lot creation, and I am opposed to more than one lot. The provincial policy of 2020 did get rid of the farm retirement lots, and this is just a backdoor way of what the approach is what I see is what's happening. It's a backdoor approach to getting more than one lot on a farm. The farm, if a farm was bought for X amount of dollars and there was all the lots and houses sold off, in essence, the farm would be granted for free. It falsifies it. Falsifies it. Can I say that word? No. It's making the property of the value of the property not in a true reflection of agricultural property in the area. So I'm actually going to oppose this, which I already have once. And just wondering, why is more than one lot allowed in this instance? And the original intent of the farm creation of the lots was for contiguous farm properties. That's where one farm is next to another, separated by a road or a ravine. The applicant does not have property within the direct area of this farm, yet we're chopping up this farmland and making sterile land. So I don't know if you can comment on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Kravitz. This is a bit of an anomalous situation in that there are 2 existing dwellings there today. How those dwellings came to be, I'm not sure. I can tell you that I've only, in 12 years of doing this, I've only seen one other property that had more than one dwelling on it. To your point about if there were 6 dwellings on here, would we be coming forward with 6 different severance applications? I don't know if that's the case, but in this case, we only have the 2 dwellings. I understand the point about the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. The provincial policy statement certainly considers this type of lot creation, again, simply because they're existing. Part of the zoning bylaw amendment that is before you is that the bylaw will prohibit any new dwellings. And that's certainly in line with the policy intent. Now, again, this is a bit of an anomalous situation. It's unusual to have more than one dwelling on this type of lot. And I think that should give council some consideration for the uniqueness of this proposal. There was an additional question, and Councilor Kravitz, perhaps you can just reiterate that. You did have an additional question. Sorry, my mind is going a little bit blank right now as to what it was.
Okay, just one thing. I'd just like to make a comment that we don't allow residential properties in industrial areas. Why are we allowing residential areas in agriculture areas? We'll just leave it at that and we'll carry on. Thank you.
Well, we're following provincial policy, whether we agree with it or not. But I know the history of the farm. I mean, it's the farmhouse plus the hired man's house. So that's why there are two houses on the property. Any other questions? Any other members of the public first? Is Mr. Campbell the only member wishing to speak? All right, questions then from council. Councilor Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one. So per Councilor Kravitz's question, does that mean that we should really be waiting for the land division to make their decision on the consent before doing the zoning bylaw, or does it matter? Do not know the answer to this.
Mr. McClure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Rowe. I would agree that we would need to wait, or should be waiting, until the decision is made by the Land Division Committee. As Mr. Campbell indicated, that is going to be, I believe, the way that it's set up, it may be before our next public meeting, our planning meeting. So I would definitely suggest, and I guess the bylaw itself isn't on the agenda today. So this was just a public meeting to hear comments and questions. So I would agree that the council shouldn't be making any decision on this application until such time that Land Division has made its mind up on the application.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? No other questions from the public, staff? If not, everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw the proposed amendment should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralalgon.org, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and providing their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call Diane Wilson at 519-631-4860, extension 286, and provide the same information. This public meeting is now concluded. Any amendment to the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council. That's Tom's.
Do you want to do this or?
Through you, Mr. Chair.